The other big development, NFL news-wise today, Danny, the NFLPA survey dropped. So this is year 3 of this NFLPA survey. And this is normally a dreaded day around these parts.
Mm-hmm.
The last 2 years, Washington has graded 32nd of 32 teams in the NFLPA team report cards. So the way this works, for those of you that don't remember, there are right around 10 categories that players are polled on, secret ballot style, where they get to grade their employer. You might do this in your own workplace, by the way. I
Absolutely,
know
yeah.
we get a little email like this where it's like, what's good? What isn't about working where you work? And so the NFLPA, the union for the players, then compiles all of the grading from every single player. It's like a 1 to 10 scale. They grade based on the numbers, letter grades for every team in every category, and then they assign 1 to 32 the overall report card. And for lack of a better phrase, I just say the best to the worst team to work for. These are things like, how do you treat the family of the players? Food and dining area. Does it taste good? Is it fresh? And do I have a nice cafeteria to eat in? Nutritionist, dietitian. Do I have someone coaching me up well? The locker room, which a lot of the teams with the dated and antiquated facilities like Washington get a really bad grade in that. Training room, training staff, the weight room, strength coaches, team travel. What kind of plane are we flying on? Do we have enough space? Is our schedule when we travel efficient? Am I having to sleep in the same room as someone in a hotel like the Dallas Cowboys make their players do the night before a game, which is comical? And then head coach and ownership. And that's my favorite categories, if I'm being honest, because it's just like secret. How much do you like your boss? Which coaches are popular? Which are not? Which owners are popular? Which are hated? Well, Danny, after 2 years of being dead last, 32 out of 32, based on players not liking working for the Commanders, and before that, the football team. This year, they ranked 11th, just outside of the top 10. What a turnaround.
Yeah, pretty clear. The turnaround is there, and it's obvious. They're limited mainly by the facilities, right? Outdated. You can do as much lipstick as you want on Nubbs Field to Dashburn. It's not a good setup. So I don't think you can get much higher than that, to be honest with you. What you can do is everything else. You can be first class in everything from training staff, strength and conditioning, treatment of families, whether it's travel, just doing everything possible to be kind and to be thoughtful and be generous and not worry about how much something costs. You just do the right thing and know that it'll come back to you in the end, know that it'll come out in the wash. I mean, we heard these stories. I don't know if this is unique to the NFL or to this team rather than other places. I have no idea. I've never experienced it though. A guy gets hurt and Adam Peters immediately, goes down to the locker room where a family member or somebody else can't go, and he's texting the spouse. He's texting the dad who he knew happened to be in the stadium at that point, or he's texting, somebody's younger brother who was there. Hey, this is what's going on. We're taking him to the emergency room, or not a big deal. It's a sprained ankle. He'll be back in a couple of weeks. Whatever that is, that's first class. Man, it just is. That is the understanding that somebody's going through it, understanding that there's anxiety from loved ones, and you're doing everything you possibly can. That's above and beyond. Now, it may not seem like that big a deal, but you do that in all walks all the time. Yeah, it's better. Because some skeptic's going to tell you it's because they won a bunch of games. Yeah, that helps. It's not worth 21 spots, though. A lot of teams that won a bunch of games didn't necessarily do that.
Well, they're just controlling the controllables. The things that they can actually positively change and affect and influence without having a new stadium and a new facility, all were on a rocket ship toward not just better grades, but A's and A pluses. They have the highest rated head coach in Dan Quinn, according to player polling this year. 1 out of 32 in terms of the score that was given to Dan Quinn by his players. They have a top 10 owner now in terms of popularity among players. They got an A grade there. Josh Harris, 8th out of 32 owners. They got an A for team travel. They got an A for their strength coaches. Again, this is just player graded, right? A lot of these guys, and especially this year, 24 of their players came from outside the building. They've been in other buildings. They've been at other stops. They came here and were so impressed this year by how Washington was doing it. It's not like you're a career commander who's been here 4 years and just the improvement year over year was so big. No, these are guys like Wagner, who's been with the Rams and the Seahawks, or Austin Eckler, who's been with the Chargers, who came here and said, I really, really like this. B+ for the training staff, B+ for the food and dining after they got F grades in that category over the last couple of years, B+ for how they treated families, a B- for their weight room. Now, you said it. A lot of the issue that they have is just going to be facilities. C+ in the training room for basically where they get their work done, and then an F in the locker room because the guys said they don't have enough space, it's not nice enough, whatever. Until you get your new stadium, and that also means you're going to get your new training facility, wherever that is, there's only so much you can do there. Maybe you could put some blush on that pick, but for the most part, Danny, you're basically looking at what, a D, hopefully a C- grade. But to go from 32 to 11, I still remember the quote at the end of last season, I think it was, when Josh Harris did a press conference and he was asked about the NFLPA scores that came out. And he said, I'm not an F- guy. We're not going to do F- work. We won't stand for that. Well, he put his money where his mouth is.
Yep.
We saw it literally with the stadium, $70 million, and you're seeing it in this polling with the stuff that we don't get to see, that the players get to see. But I think a big part of this is Adam Peters, who's just a human being with human skills and high EQ and treats people really well, who sets the front office culture. I think a huge part of this is Dan Quinn, same thing.
Yep.
Good human being with good people-to-people skills. They had some of that. Like Ron Rivera was a beloved guy and a liked coach. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't suggest that some of this was the fact that they won a bunch of games and it was a lot more fun to come to work.
Sure.
When you're winning 14 games instead of 4 the previous season. But there is a chicken or the egg we'll debate later in the show, conversation to be had here where the 14 wins were made possible by guys wanting to be in the building for longer than they wanted to be there last year. But look at some of the big differences. Treatment of families. Last year, F-, this year, F+. Food and dining. Last year was up from an F to a D+. This year, B+. Let's see. Where are some of the other biggest? Training staff went from an F to a B+, an area where they invested a lot of time and money. Team travel went from an F to an A. How the heck do you go from an F to an A in a year? You try. You work at it. You spend. You ask a lot of questions. Harris and Rails and these owners sit down with players and ask them, what do you need? Head coach Rivera went C to Quinn, A+. Ownership, year one of the ownership group of B. They listened, they made changes, now they're an A. Almost unilaterally across the board, everything went up.
And there's no guarantee. Like if you finish 1 or 2 in this, doesn't mean that you're going to win in 15 games. And there are gripes with every organization. I like the Bills, for example, who've been a buzzsaw, have been as good as anybody in the sport. I think had like an F when it came to travel, an F-, or you look at some of the different things. Some of it isn't necessarily a guarantee one way or the other. You can have strengths and weaknesses. I mean, Atlanta finished really high, and they've been the definition of mediocre. So it's not always 1-to-1. But the point is, you've gone from this old way of doing it previously, where for everybody that used to defend Snyder or say, well, he wants to win or whatever, you had a funny way of showing it. You can do the prize that everybody gets to see. The unsexy thing, the winning thing, the good behavior thing, which is you treat people well. Every once in a while, you may stumble into that. They never could find a way to do so, whether it was training table, whether it was food, whether it was the facility. I mean, again, can you imagine how embarrassed you would be? I'm talking to you, Grant, and then everyone else out there listening. If part of your NFL facility, guys had to walk around an unusable turf field that had basically been condemned. Basically, like, it's not safe to have people on this field as part of an NFL practice facility. You can't go on it because it'll it's like going on the concrete at Veterans Stadium after 1 million years of wear and tear. You just dealt with that, not for a minute, not for 6 months when we're saving some money. For decades, you couldn't use that thing. It took Harris an hour. Going, what? We can't use that? Bullcrap. We're fixing that right now. That's just what you do. The whole business is supposed to be about winning football games and treating people well. It comes back to you, and I'm proud of him. Honestly, that's awesome.
So this was polling of the players. I want to reiterate, NFLPA did this. And these are the things that they saw that mattered to them, that made their experience better with the Commanders.